What's up, nerds? It's me, Squatingdog. Welcome to Chapter 3, Season 2 of the Unvaulted Podcast, and I am your host. But an unprepared PM always calls me...
something.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
What's up, PM?
Oh, nothing. It's Wednesday. I thought, so just a little backstory on where I live. I live in Portland, Oregon, and the weather is constantly changing. So last week it was like 80 and sunny. It was perfect. It was amazing. 4 days later, we had a snowstorm. And now it's back to like raining all the time. And then we're going to have a nice weather thing in the future. And so I'm just like really confused about what's going on here. And my allergies are just smacking me in the face. So it's been fantastic.
Whoa.
Speaking of allergies, there we go.
Yeah, seriously. You know, like when you have something like deep in your throat and you're like, what are you doing there? It's the only thing you could do is cough it out. Yeah, that's crazy, bro. Like, I feel like the weather here in California was also weird. Like, it was like freezing one day. It was like cold rain. And then the next day it was like 100. And we're like,
is freezing to you like 75 and partly cloudy?
Man. Yeah, man, it's super freezing. I like can't even touch water, you know. Like,
no, you go outside and you're like, God, I need like, you know, a Canada Goose jacket. I need to like bundle up.
Yeah, I'm thinking if I'm going to
boots.
actually wear my sweatshirt for the first time in like 4 years. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you are listening here today, we are we're taking every conversation that we have to Twitter. We're calling this our Twitter Space Town Hall meeting. So if you guys listen to this podcast and you're like, I want to voice something, I want to talk about whatever the concept or whatever the thing is that we talk about in each episode, you can join us. It's going to be on at 4 p.m. On Friday, right? Pacific time. So if you're interested in that, come on by. You just need to follow either me or PM. We'll both advertise it on our socials or the Unvaulted, of course. And you'll see us in there. You can join and we can get you in and we can have a cool conversation around. If you disagree or agree or just want to bring up another point, it's a space in which we get to hear from our listeners. So if that's something that you would enjoy, come on by. That's going to be this Friday at 4 Pacific time.
Yeah, and if you really have a burning question, get in there early because I will accept you before anyone else. I won't just be picking anyone else to come up. It is limited to an hour. We do not want to make this a long thing. So if you really have a question you want to ask, get there at 4:00, ask to speak. I'll bring you up, and then you can almost be guaranteed a question. So.
Yeah, and we're going to try to get our speakers, if we ever have a speaker on, we'll try to get them be a part of that too. So you might be able to have a cool conversation with content creators and whatnot. We had a bunch of content creators come through last for the Save the World one. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah, check it out if you can. But for today's topic, we're going to do a mid-season critique and talk through all of the newest updates that have been rolling out. We got to have access to a new shotgun now and a few other things. So we're going to dive into what we think of Chapter 3, Season 2 as a whole and where we think we're going with all this. Let's start with you, PM. I mean, we are at week 5, I think, as you're talking. And I think 12 weeks is typically the length of a season. How you feeling about this whole IO versus 7 war season?
I mean, right off the bat, I don't care about the IO versus the 7 war. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, when I saw that the theme was war, I was like, whatever. Like, it's not going to do anything to me. Whatever. I'll land in a bugle and see battling and be like, okay, but I still need to play the game. So I'm not like the biggest fan when it comes to the in-game lore. I do think it was really cool though when there would be the battles. You know, like there was that brief period last update where they were like, you would land somewhere and they would go like 4v4 against each other. What is the IO and the 7 are the guards for them would go against each other. That was cool because you would get a bunch of loot when they all died. So that was fantastic. They need to bring that back because it was easy farming.
You still get good loot, dude, with the if you go to one of those hotspots, it takes a lot longer, but at the end you're walking away with like golden combat SMGs, bro.
Yeah, you are guaranteed a great SMG, and if you don't like the shotguns in this meta, then that's like the place to go. Right. I think that was cool, but I mean, season overall has been great. I personally don't like the no building. We've talked about that before. I do think it is a great, refresh for the game and people come back and they love it. I mean, every content creator who swore the game off has just come back to it because of the no building mode. So I'm
Yeah.
totally fine with that. I love these new guns. I love the burst AR. I mentioned in previous pods the one thing I want to see is a red dot burst, and got one. So I love that. I love the MK7. I'm glad it's back. That was like my favorite gun of all time. I still think the current shotguns are terrible. The drum shotgun is cool, but I just miss the pump. There's just something about the mechanics of the pump and the way it is used and how it kind of pulls out of the back. It's just, you can't replicate that feeling. And I just want that back. Just don't make it 200 damage and I'll be fine.
TM, I think your critique of the pump is because it does 200 damage. I think that is the charm of why people love it. If you have a gun in which you beam, eliminate, and destroy as fast as possible, you are going to get endorphins sent to your brain, and it is going to associate. That is a great feeling. And so I think everyone like you who have experienced the pump at its prime, where you're just 200 pumping everyone and they're going down like that, you're going to want that feeling again.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
I relate it to getting dunked on versus dunking on somebody. Like the feeling of posterizing someone in basketball is unlike any other feeling in sports. Like it's 1v1. I'm meeting you in the air and I'm going to literally dominate you in the air. So when you 200 pump someone, it's like there's no better feeling. It's like you sit back and you're like, what was that Antonio Banderas meme where he just sits back on the computer and he's like, that's how it feels. But then when it happens to you, you swear off the game. You're like, bro, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm never playing again. And so, there's definitely a balance to it. But
I feel like that was a very smart move from Epic Games. If you really think about it, if you give the power of a 200 pump weapon in the hands of somebody who is already incredible at the game and has like the freedom to play whenever they want, and then you have just your average Joe getting on to play with his son or something and it dies instantly. Like, you do all of this cool stuff. You might like mat up. You might like spend 12 minutes just like having a great time. And then one guy comes in and eliminates you in 1 second. That is the worst feeling you can have. So I think like their movement of, and it's very intentional. Epic is moving away from
the heavy sniper too.
Snipers, everything has been moved away from this 200 number. And I think it's strategic to keep people's sanity, because if you do a lot of damage with a shotgun close range, you now have to follow up. You can't just get away with that one shot and run. You have to now follow through. And so there's a lot more cat and mousing this season, which is like, I think a lot of people are frustrated about, for sure, because you're like, I did all this work, I sniped you across the map, and I'm chasing you, and you found a car and ran away from me. That's a bummer, for sure. But I do think it creates more moments for players as a whole to keep playing the game, which is what they want, rather than like, I'm so angry by this, I'm going to stop playing. I think that's the last thing Epic Games wants.
No, I mean, you can see so many compilations of streamers and content creators that get so frustrated when they've spent this whole game and they get 8 or 9 kills and they're getting towards the end game, and then someone out of nowhere pop dead, and they're just like, what? They're just like, I'm sorry, what just happened? And they get frustrated. So it's a good move to not have the any weapon do full max damage.
What's interesting,
there's just no better feeling than hitting someone with a heavy sniper for 350 damage. It's money.
What's interesting though is like when this season they added the overshield for no building. I feel like that, they could play with that a little bit, right? Like, if you have a sniper rifle that does 200 damage and you have full heals and that overshield, technically you'll stay alive. And so I wonder if they could flirt with that a little bit, this concept of overshield. It'll be interesting to see how long it stays, how long no building stays. My guess is this is going to be more of a permanent mode for a little while. Given how much of a response from big content creators, anybody who like, you can now add this on your shuffle. So if you're like a streamer who plays in a bunch of different like, competitions. You can now like add Fortnite into your mix because you get the concept of it. You don't have to spend every weekend training to be able to build, edit, all that stuff. You can just jump in, get the game, understand it, play it, and have fun. As long as you know positional awareness, you have some positional awareness. And I feel
which
like
most of
that
them do.
Yeah, I feel like that overlap amongst other games will cause a lot of people to keep playing this game. And it's fascinating to see how much more, and I don't know, I don't have the stats on this, but it just seems like a lot more people are excited about the comp scene with no builds because it's more fun to watch. It all becomes the same when you watch FNCS, right? Like everyone's in a 1x1. You're watching somebody just like chill in a box until they're forced to move from that box to find another box. And a lot of times that is what you're watching for content and for tournaments. And now we have this really interesting dynamic where like positioning is everything and big moves are rewarded and also punished. And I think like that is, from a spectator experience, a really exciting time. Yeah.
I mean, I hate equating things to sports, but how I kind of view it is college football versus the NFL. Like seriously, it's the college football versus the NFL, where the NFL is like, you want to watch the best of the best. You want to watch the strategic, the top of the line athletes, like watch the NFL. Like, stick with the NFL. But if you want to have more fun, maybe the players aren't as good, but it's just kind of a different, unique game with more parity and more teams and more upsets. Yeah, go watch the no build mode. Go watch college football. And it's like, I think Epic is going to split off their competitive divisions based off that idea, where it's like, okay, hey, if you're a true sweat and you truly want to be dominant in this game, go compete with building. Go be the best you can be. Learn about it. We'll give you more money because at the end of the day, that's the bigger competition. That's the Super Bowl. But hey, if you don't want to do that, if you want to stick to more of an, I hate saying this term, but amateur kind of style of game where it's not the full professional, go ahead and play the no builds. Play the no builds, compete, get really good at it. And they've opened up 2 lanes for really highly competitive games, which is insane.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like I agree and disagree. Like I feel like they're like what you said at the end. Like they're 2 different things. Yeah, I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. It's just. I think what Epic is going to pay attention to is where it brings more participation, where they see more people play. And if you have to operate having both of those for the rest of its life, they will, right? Like they'll pour out the resources to make that work. Or they'll pay attention, and keep it's just what it feels like. Every season it's a tinkering of like small things to test out what happens to their audience, because you don't want your audience to all jump ship. But like this has brought more people than I personally, like people that I play with, my old friends who just couldn't keep up with the building because I became a streamer and content creator for this. They now play this game, and it's great for me because I love my friends. And so that's exciting. But like if building just continues to go in a trajectory where no one can keep up with it, my guess is a majority of the bigger audience and most eyes might shift off of
eventually
crazy building, over time. And I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just speculating, like that energy, like a lot of tournaments are going no build, and that's strategic from them. A lot of them aren't choosing building as like for like Twitch rivals and stuff like that. Like they're choosing no builds because of the spectator experience. And I still think that the spectator experience is more closely identified with a normal player of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I agree completely. The most watched competition they'll do is the no build tournament, because it'll include all of the popular streamers and content creators, the people that everyone watches to begin with. That'll be the most viewed. It still won't necessarily be like, and I hate saying the best of the best, because people are going to want to watch the FNCS
for sure.
Hyper competitive kids play, but it's smart because they definitely saw a dip in viewership because people just didn't want to see it. It was just like, why am I watching this? yeah, if I can't do it in the first place, I can't, people, the one thing I noticed early on with Fortnite competitive when, as in terms of viewership, is people kind of latched on to these streamers like teams. They were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
watch Ninja compete because I love Ninja," or "I'm gonna
Mhm.
watch Courage compete because I love Courage." Once they started getting phased out, it was a bunch of random kids that no
Yeah.
one knew, like these 14, 15, 16-year-old kids that are gods at the game, but they
Yeah.
had no, content creation presence, no branding, no anything. So all these people are like, I don't know who so and so Timmy is. Like, I've never seen him before. I don't care about him. I don't want him to win. And if he does win, whatever. So the people who have
Right.
like latched onto these quote unquote brands will come back through the no building mode because those guys are going to compete, which will then open up to watching the bigger FNCS. So there's no way that they're just going to ignore this for competition. Like, it's going to
Mm-mm.
be two extreme competitions, and it might be two of the most watched competitions compared to any other
Yeah.
game.
Well, I mean, we got the World Cup announcement, and that's going to be builds. That's going to be exciting. Like, that's going to be a really cool time to see.
Do you think they do a no build World Cup?
I don't know.
I
Yeah.
think they do.
I feel like that would be really rad to see both, honestly. But I feel like I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like, the World Cup in general, for context, is like they will do, their most popular game modes. I think they have to articulate in advance, like,
Yeah.
what game
'Cause
modes those will be. There's like a
it was the
creative
death run.
experience as well. Like, so
Yeah.
there's like some sort of like creative experience, and that's usually for people that go to the World Cup and get to like have a hands-on experience. And then there's a bunch of other things like that they do, and so all for a lot of money. Really, really grad. But I don't. Yeah, I'm curious of like I haven't researched enough of it to know what those will be. Maybe we'll talk about that in another podcast. But
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see, like, they'll have data, right, from the old World Cup to this World Cup. They'll be able to know where it's at in terms of its popularity. I think a lot of people are looking for IRL events anyways, so I think it'll still be very popular. But I'm curious as to I would love to have access to data between no build. Like, it would just be like so fascinating to break down. And we can only gauge based off of what we see for tournaments. And like I said, some of my friends and what I hear online, playing the game. But yeah, I think this whole concept is I think it's sticking around. I think no build is sticking around for longer than maybe we thought it would.
I think for the whole duration of the game, I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think it's permanent.
It would be interesting to see.
There's no reason why they would get rid of it. Like, what would they benefit from getting rid of it next season?
Well, if it's boring, right? It's like, it feels like I think they brought it in with the thought of it being an LTM, maybe, and it blew up. And then they were like, okay, like, and they were ready for both. They were ready for any way in which this would go. If it was like they show no builds, everyone's having a hard time, everyone's hating it, and everyone's bored. They're like, great, 3 days, we're back to normal. Like, but they kept it, and they keep keeping it, and they're expanding it. And so there's a plan for that, and it's strategic. So I think you're right. I think it's staying for a while. Will it be forever? But I don't know. But it's about the pacing, right? So like, you got to have new things that are exciting to play. Like, and that brings us to this next topic. Right now in the game, players are able to pick between the bubble shield versus balloons, right? And we've seen this throughout the season. This is like a war box, I think they're called. And so players get to use their gold that they accumulate in the game and put it towards either of these two decisions.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you also get minis. So if you're just out there on the battlefield and you're like, oh man, I'm about to die, you can do this and just get minis. So you can vote just to get minis. But yeah, so bubble shield versus balloons, it's interesting because I think now more than ever, these two items work completely different in the game modes. Like, and I think that's been my favorite experience this season, is recognizing when a jetpack shows up in the game. It's like, kind of helpful here, super helpful here. So like, there's these trade-offs, right? Like, so as an example of the jetpack, if you use a jetpack with builds, you might be able to fly up a few to hit somebody who is just like grinding their way up to the sky with builds. You can then pop them and get a shot. But like maybe less useful in terms of like actually utilizing it for mobility, because you could build anywhere or you can drive or whatever.
Yeah.
But in no builds, you can get into positions that nobody can get to, right? Like you could fly to the bottom of the balloons and chill there, snipe, and no one will be able to access you. You can get on top of a tree for a snipe. There, you could escape a fight by going up instead of like just out. And I think like that is crazy to see those two drastic changes. So when it comes to bubble shield versus balloon, since I've been playing a lot of no build, I'm just thinking about the bubble shield, like, and how cool that would be as a rotation tactic where you're like, typically it's all about placement. And if you don't have high ground, you're going to be in trouble, or you don't have a place to kind of hide and sway back and forth to make your shot, you're in trouble. But with a bubble shield, you can make a big move to get to a new spot and use that shield in that time to be able to get you where you need to be, protect your team if you need to get a res. All really valuable things strategically. And I think like watching that on even on a competitive or like some sort of like, you know, streaming event would be really, really rad.
Yeah. I just have one question as far as like the bubble shield goes.
Yeah.
What does it remind you of?
Halo.
In no build mode, like what does it remind you of? What is something that functions like a bubble shield that has already been implemented in the game for the entirety of the game?
What?
Building.
Oh, yeah. No, but that's what I'm saying. For building, like it's useless.
Yeah. So
like, you know, like no building, it's going to be incredible. But
it's
for building, it's not. It'll
like, be incredible because it mirrors building, which is why it's like ironic to me that they want to get rid of this shield or this protection layer by giving you another protection layer. Like I get there's a cooldown on it, so you can't like always stay on it. But like, how is it any different than being like, I'm going to build a wall? You can still shoot through the wall, but I'm going to build the wall to protect myself because I need to heal. I just think it's really it's just very contradicting to take out the aspect of the game that's defensive and your replacement is another defensive mechanism that is worse. Like I get that if that's what you want to do, go ahead. But the reason why I'm fully on Team Balloon is because the content is just so much better with the balloons. Like it is just, imagine like I have this theory and you could take it, but imagine you got 4 guys in a tank and everyone's got balloons and you just have a floating tank in the air and you're just beaming people from super high up. That would be fantastic. Like
everyone in the battle bus, all 7 of them.
Exactly. Like some of the greatest thing about the balloons was all the trick shots people would do. There was so much content around it. So from like a content standpoint, I would much rather see balloons because people can do more with them. I just don't think bubble shields do anything other than protect you from guns, gunfire, which is what builds do anyways. So I just think it's a little weird that they put that in there.
I agree with what you're saying. And like, I mean, it goes back to Epic Games just testing these things, so like if Bubble Shield does make its way, I feel like it's because of no builds is why it will show up. But my curiosity is, okay, so you get a Twitch Rivals match going with Bubble Shields. Are they all just holding on to those things at the very end? And is it going to turn into an end game like we've seen, in any FNCS where it's just like bubble shield, bubble shield, bubble shield, bubble shield, and it's like super boring. So I feel like the limitation then would be having, a 2-stack max or something, which I feel like is already in the game. But I do know that that's kind of how these games operate, is you hold on to the things that are most valuable or can save your life in these moments. So I can get where you're going with that. And I agree, like balloons are so much fun. Like they're so much fun, especially shooting people down from balloons. It's equally fun. So
that's the thing is you can't take the risk as someone who has balloons because you will get fall damage. So there's that added like anxiety that's fun. Like, oh, I'm going to try this. Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't, you're like, oh, damn it.
I can't decide. I don't know if those that are listening now, like, Let us know in our comment sections. What do you think? Bubble shield versus balloon? I think we'll find out soon. So it'll be cool to
Yeah.
see where the community's at with that once that goes live. We've also got a new shotgun added to the game. PM. This is a new shotty. What's the name of this shotgun?
The Ranger shotgun.
Ranger shotgun. Yeah, they're adding Ranger and stuff like to everything.
It is a little weird that they keep doing that. It's very weird.
Yeah. It's got to be a lot of work, is all I'm thinking. Like, there's one guy at Epic Games that's just like relearning how to make all types of shotguns, all types of SMGs.
What's the love with the name Ranger, though? Like, I don't really get it.
Well, I mean, the reason why probably is because it's got some range. You can shoot this thing to 135. I think we looked it up before this. 135 body
for the
distance.
Legendary.
Yeah. So a gold shotgun can do that. And that's pretty good. It gives me combat vibes like the old shotgun, but way better. Like it seems like it's more accurate. It seems like the shots are easier to line up. But the only thing is you got one shot, and then you have a 1.3 or 2 second reload, which isn't horrible, especially for building. I feel like when I was playing builds, it was like, this is that dynamic again. When I'm playing builds, it's fantastic. It's a great shotgun because you can shoot, put up a build, work on that reload, or shoot SMG, put up to your builds one by one, chill.
Or reset and edit, all those kind of things. Yeah.
But in no builds, I feel like it's not helpful unless you're in an area where you're making good peaks. Because here's the deal. Like, if you're close range, that drum shotgun is going to eat you apart. Like, there's no way you're going to be close. And then even at mid range, which it's advertising kind of like this close to mid range distance, though, your combat SMG is going to eat you up. So I feel like it kind of fits this void of like, there's two other guns like performing really well in the meta right now, and this gun kind of just doesn't really infiltrate well, I think. But on the build side, it's fantastic because you can put up that extra level of support that you need to get that reload off. So it's fascinating to me. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I agree completely. If you are doing no builds, do not pick up the shotguns. Stick with the green drum shotgun if you get one, and just run with that, because that'll be the only shotgun you ever need. Actually, don't even get a shotgun. Honestly, if you're doing no build mode, just don't keep one, because you're probably not going to get close to someone to even use it to begin with. The build mode, like, I actually love this for builds. It reminds me of last season when the heavy shotgun had that random update where you could like literally snipe somebody.
Oh yeah.
That was so cool. But the problem was the
shell one, right? It's just shot a shell.
Yeah. The scope was so tiny that it was like impossible to hit. But when you hit it, you were like, oh, that's cool. So it's almost like they were trying to get that going for this shotgun.
For sure.
I'm totally fine with this. I still don't like the one shot shotguns. Like, that's just going to make me upset. Like,
totally.
I remember the one thing I hated the most about the charge shotgun was the fact that it only did 3 bullets and then you had to reload. And it was just like, I remember being in fights and using that shotgun, running out of ammo and being like, great, now I'm dead. Because I can't, obviously can't hit my shots sometimes. So not everyone's hitting, with perfect accuracy. So I was like, give me 5 shells. And they did eventually. Yeah. But I just think this is going to be another one of those shotguns, and I'm going to die because I missed a shot and be like, that's it. I'm done with that one.
When I was in fights with it, I would shoot my shot and do the damage and then follow through with the SMG, but then they would build. And so then I'd have to spam through a few walls. But then I found myself, both my close range weapons needed to be reloaded. SMG. Yeah. And so it is interesting. It keeps you like, you have to take a shot and be more patient. I feel like with this shotgun, it's kind of not like this like spam heavy. You have to rely on your spam, I think, with your SMG AR, and less with the shotgun, which I think is I think there's a play style for a lot of people with this. And it's also really great with teams. So like if you have 2 people with this gun, they're going to do some short work because you can switch between each other, reload in between, and keep those shots pushing on people. But yeah, I think it's a great gun. I think it's, like I said, it's interesting now that we have the lens of build, no build. It's like you can really critique something It can be really excellent in one and really poor in another. And I
Yeah.
think that's fascinating. So fascinating. But as these updates have been rolling out, I feel like they have been slower than what people are maybe used to or excited for. This does feel like a season that is kind of just a I call it a plan B season. It's not your like A content. It's kind of like more regular, right? Like we got the new map last season, we got Spider-Man, we got like a huge amount of like new content. And so then it naturally slows when we get into season 2, where it's like we've had the map for a while, but then they're doing weird stuff. Like I feel like the weirdest thing for me was like they had this whole weather system, they had Colombo, they had all these things that they added, and then they just disappeared season 2. And I think that's where we start to feel the differences of like two different teams working on two different seasons at the same time. Sometimes that there's overlap and sometimes there's not. And I think like what's fascinating about this is like why do you it's like why don't you use that? Like I don't understand why you don't just naturally have that, like that evolution. Like it would be weird like if trees fell season 1 and then season 2 they don't fall anymore. It'd be like,
Yeah.
That's weird. And so they weren't the most massive things, but I feel like with everything going on, you could have more content for content creators and players if there was a little bit more stacking of those things. So we've been essentially seeing blimps show up. Blimps are now being destroyed. You can go to a POI and there's like massive chaos. So if you have a favorite POI, you might not, it might not be your favorite soon. Like for example, at the Daily Bugle, there was a blimp there. There was a battle that happened. The new update comes out. The blimp is now in the water, and that battle has moved on to a new area, which makes the Daily Bugle great. If you guys want a nice little fun tip, all you have to do is drop Daily Bugle with you and your duo. One person goes in the battle bus, one person goes in the tank, flatten the entire bottom of it. Everybody falls to their death. You take all of the glorious loot and you walk away because there's nobody above you anymore. It's fantastic. But these updates have been really, really, or not really, but they've just been slower in terms of like outfits. I know the leaking community has been kind of having this identity problem right now where it's like we don't have access to show people the new things that are coming in these next 2 weeks because it kind of comes in these 2-week chunks. And Epic's been doing a better job of hiding assets before revealing them. And so they unlock as they're ready for them to be unlocked, where previously leakers could kind of like see everything and show everything. And it really boosted a lot of their numbers. It boosted a lot of content creator numbers because they're able to kind of like talk out what's going on. And then now it feels like more silence every time an update comes out, which I think is an interesting topic. It's like one that is maybe this necessary evil. I don't know, but it just seems like to somebody who has been used to a leaker telling them everything, there's an excitement involved. It's like a Christmas experience every time that happens, kind of much like a new season where you're like, ooh, what could come? And then Epic Games slowly reveals it. Now it's like all of that is kind of pulled back a little bit. Leakers have access to a little bit of things, but not much. And then Epic is the one to kind of share those things. But when Epic shares, it's like you don't know when it's going to be, you don't know what time it's going to be, and it kind of like creates this sense of like, I don't know when to prepare to look, which I think creates a tension of excitement for what's happening in Fortnite. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, you kind of hit it on the head there that it's almost like Christmas, or it kind of used to feel like Christmas morning. I actually, and I've mentioned this before, I actually like the fact that the leakers don't have access to things as much anymore, because it was getting to a point where they would spoil everything and I wouldn't care. Like it got to a point where they're like, oh, Spider-Man's going to be in a month. And I'm like, cool. Like, why did you tell me now? Like, you couldn't have waited until like the day before.
Yeah.
And I could have been excited. Like there used to be a time that I got really excited to see the updates on a Tuesday morning when I got into work, because I didn't know about them until, they were available.
Yeah.
Now it's like 3 weeks out, something's happening. And it's kind of like when it shows up, it's like, all right, well, I
Yeah,
already knew
sure.
that. On to the next. So I
Yeah.
I actually like the fact that these leakers haven't been able to or don't have the access to this kind of information, because I think it makes it more like Christmas morning. Like imagine on Christmas Eve if some leaker told you all the gifts you're getting. Like you're
Sure.
not gonna you're gonna be like, yeah, tell me, and then Christmas is gonna happen. You're gonna be like, yeah, but I already know that, so the excitement's gone. You
Right.
know,
And there is
and
this element, if we use this analogy, right? Christmas morning, it's like there's a difference from knowing what your present is and then playing with your present, which
yeah,
I feel like are two different things, right? Like, so being able to like play with the balloons or bubble shield, we already know they're coming, but like to be able to play with them, like still has that excitement when it
yeah, for sure.
comes. But yeah, I get your point. Definitely.
Like there's this there was a study that talked about like the most exciting part of a vacation is actually before the vacation, because you're
Mm,
just so like excited to go do it. You're excited to like not do what you're doing and go do the thing that you want to do. But then when you're there and you start getting that, okay, I want to actually go back home, like I'm getting ready to finish this up. And
yeah.
so I kind of look at it like that. It's like I get excited for the updates that I don't know about, because it's like, oh, are they going to bring back the heavy sniper? Are they going to bring back this thing before that we haven't seen? Are they going to like introduce this new POI or this new mechanic? And so it's like it's really cool when I don't know that until it shows up on Tuesday.
Sure.
But if
Yeah.
I know that 3 weeks ahead of time, I'm not going to be as excited about it.
Right. And I feel like what's interesting is like I wonder. I mean, I wonder what that. I don't. Like, once again, I don't have this data, but I feel like there is content creators kind of fill in a void of excitement too, right? Like, um, they help build Epic Games
Mm-hmm.
hype towards something. If I do something like creative with an outfit, and people laugh and have a good experience from it, they might be more apt to purchasing or doing that thing too, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I do feel like content creators play a piece in this, and I think Epic Games has been very interesting in the sense of like they are working strategically with content creators, me being one of them, where they will gift those things early as like a, we want you guys to like be the face of this content and the face of getting people excited about this
Yeah.
content. And it seems like they kind of want to create a trusted source, maybe, so to speak, because I mean there are moments, and this has happened in the leaking community time after time, where people go a little too far. And I'm not going to
Mhm.
mention the Icon series person that got leaked recently, but like imagine it, I would put myself in these shoes, right? Like if I had a Squatingdog bundle, right, that came out, and it was like went into the Epic store, and it was really rad. It was really cool. It was like I knew about this like months out and had to be quiet about it. And then like the moment an update goes live, all these leakers are saying Squatingdog bundle, and I am not allowed to talk about it until it actually
Mhm.
releases.
Mhm.
And so everybody's knocking on my door on social media like, hey, bro, this is exciting, right? And I'm like,
How
can't
did you
say
know
it. It is
this?
like this.
Yeah.
It's like such a bummer because now I don't get to have my moment. It gets kind of changed, swapped up. And although it's not bad, it's different. It's not what you expect. And
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been a lot of those types of experiences where Epic's kind of trying to like figure out a way where are areas in which we can encourage trusted support, rather than like this discovery mode where it's like I found all this stuff now,
Yeah.
follow me, check it out, like this is what's going on. And it's like I feel like there's this, it's a difficult conversation to navigate, I think,
So I know from talking with some of them, and I think when we've talked to some of them on the podcast too,
Yeah.
that there are actual laws in place to prevent them from leaking certain things in the future. And those laws are DMCA laws, which is a classic law that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Basically, these guys can get hold of the information, but until someone else leaks it or until it becomes like a certain parameter, they actually can't say it because it'll threaten to remove their account, and
Yeah.
their account is everything to them. So if, tomorrow all your famous, favorite leakers were to get DMCA strike, it's because Fortnite would be like, hey, you posted this sensitive information that is not available yet. We're going to strike you. And Twitter would have to take their account down. So there's definitely like a pressure on them to not put out certain things. But it seems like recently they will take whatever they can take as far as like allowing them to do it. So like if someone else accidentally leaks it, they're like, oh, this guy leaked it, so I'm going to use his like as my source, even though I already knew. But I can now say it because someone else said it. And so it's like that could get really tricky. And it leads to, information that people get excited about, like a icon skin being leaked months before, they want to announce it. Like that's their moment. And these like the bigger leakers will not do that because they understand. They're like, hey, I know this person, or I know what this means to this person. I'm not going to do it. But the 20 others that are trying to get followers do not care. Yeah. And once they get that information, they are going to blast it because that'll be followers back for them. Right. So it's this moral compass that is really hard to navigate. So yeah, it's not easy, but there are laws in place to prevent certain things. So
there's a lot of, there's a young generation that really wants to be, it's crazy to see what kids are doing these days, like with like coding and all that stuff. Like a lot of kids are excited about, they look up to these massive, leakers and go, I want to do this too. But then they don't have that moral compass or etiquette. And I think a lot of the people that are on the top of the leaking community, they have made a lot of, they've learned by mistake, they're kind of battle written a little bit in their learnings. And I think these other kids are just like, well, I just kind of want the followers, I feel like it just becomes this weird, like, I don't care about the community. There's a lot of leakers that don't even play Fortnite. And that's interesting to me. Like, it's fascinating to me. It's like, they kind of more care about the just growing in popularity rather than being a part of the community through its pros and its cons. And I feel like that's a very unique stance to have, and usually is kind of like where my red flag goes off. It's like you're just kind of you're just doing this just to keep being popular. And I think that can be dangerous for anything that you're part of. But yeah.
And I think like early on in Fortnite's early days, like these leakers were around, but they weren't getting nearly the engagement because Fortnite wasn't this big game yet that everyone like loved and everyone wanted to know about. So they were able to kind of manipulate what they could say because the repercussions weren't going to be as heavy morally and legally. Like they weren't going to get, people coming up to them being like, hey, why did you leak this about me? Because no one really cared back then. Nowadays, I feel like any of the established leakers have relationships with those content creators to be like, hey, I know this information about you, what you're doing. I know this information about this. I'm not going to leak it because I know it's special to you, but I can't prevent that from someone else doing it. And they'll make you aware of that. At least a good one will.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it is tough. Shout out to all the good leakers. So
I know there's a lot of them too, which is interesting. Like there's it's a mixed bag. It's a very unique community. I love them. Okay, so we've got so I feel like it's just this cadence of slower content. It just kind of feels like a backseat season where we didn't even have like a trail, like really an event.
Well, there was a reason, but yeah, it makes sense. We talked about it, but like I feel like we're hopefully going towards some sort of event by the end of this, and it seems like all of the energy that was placed on this season might be towards the tail end for like some event or something. Like we might be leading up to that. I hope so. It would make sense. I know you're not a lore buff, but the 7 and the IO have been not best friends for a long time. Yeah, seems like forces are getting amped up. People are doing some crazy things. They're battling for loopers. It seems like we have a climax coming, and I hope that it's soon because like it would be a bummer if this whole season was just like, okay. Season 2. I don't know. You brought it up. I actually love the cinematic side of this game. Like I actually
Mm-hmm.
do love the lore, and I love watching the trailers and the events. Like I think that's what makes it so cool and unique. What I don't like is like the mid game, like, oh, go talk to a character and find out
Sure.
information. I'm like, I don't have time for that. I'm just trying to be sweaty. Like, let me do that. But I do love the end season, like little things they put in week by week that builds up to this event. And, you know, you watch the cinematics. Like I am a sucker for those. And I really hope they have that at the end of the season, because I did miss that last season, but it was for good reason. I had to remind myself, you know, obviously with the Ukraine issues, they were not going to tease anything for that, which is totally fine.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, to wrap up some of what we talked about today, where do you think we're going? What can we speculate based off of the information that we have? I'm curious of your thoughts of like where's season 3 gonna be. We got Prowler, which is the last thing that you can unlock for this season that just released, and so now we're just working on outfits that have new styles. That's really all we have out of our battle pass. So we're getting to the tail end of battle pass stuff. I know, you know, if you're listening, you know, you're like, well, I just barely unlocked this, and I get it. Like we're all going to be in different areas with that, but I mean, in terms of content, in terms of what we'll go, oh, that's new. We've kind of hit it all with the battle pass stuff, and typically speaking, when challenges come out every week, if you've done your battle pass, it just all becomes this unnecessary void, and everybody's eyes start to go towards new things that can be added into the game itself, you know, outside of just cosmetic vibes. And so we're getting bubble shield, we're getting balloons, potentially, you know, one or the other. We'll probably have a few of those iterations. I know there's like a machine gun that's been play tested,
the LMG, right?
LMG.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we've got I'm sure we'll have a bunch more things that will come. Like I know Chopper has been teased. So there's a bunch of stuff that could be coming. Maybe when all the balloons crash, we'll get choppers in the game. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Ballers as well, like a new iteration of ballers. So I'm just curious. I mean, we're getting Clombos. Those are coming back, reintroduced again, which is interesting.
Really weird why they wouldn't have just kept him in the first place. Like I don't get that.
Yeah, like, it's weird. I think they got like a ton of feedback from season 1 and how everyone loved that, and they were like, oh, we don't have that planned for the second season. So I think like that's probably one of those things where they're like, hey, let's create this creature, it's kind of fun, it's a dinosaur, so we can eventually do a dinosaur season, blah 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 blah, build up the history of that. And then people reacted really strongly, like making
everyone loves Colombo.
Like they think it's in the vault, the Colombo's in the vault. Like they're starting to speculate, like all they see is Colombo. And so I think they were like, we should probably put that back. We should probably. I'm not hearing anybody saying they're missing tornadoes, so we're not going to put that in. But we'll just put Colombo back for sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't remember another thing in Fortnite that everyone would stop fighting just because Colombo is around to go see Colombo. Like it's kind of like a dog when you're at like a restaurant. Everyone's like, oh, dog. Like everyone will stop what they're doing and be like, hey, I want to go over and talk to him. And so I don't know why they got rid of him. It was so weird.
Yeah. So I mean, my thoughts are IO7 thing. A lot of people from the lore community is like, well, if you give us all of the 7, what lore do we have? And I feel like that's a good argument, but you have to realize like we have so much lore that is untapped.
Eventually you have to.
We have the drift community where it's like all the like Fox clan. We've got like the ice fire vibes. You know, we had that the prisoner and whatever the heck his thing was, the Ice King. We've got the Queen. We've got the one of the 7 saying he was the Cube King. There's like tons of lore that they could activate at any given moment. And I feel like some people are like, the 7 is my life. It's like, sure. But I feel like they can articulate why they are the 7, how they've become the 7. Were any of these other characters a part? Or like, you know, like there's tons you can debrief with IO because they've been around for 1,000 years. I don't even know how that makes sense. So there's just tons of content. And I think some people are worried that like this climax will be like the
The
end of
end.
Fortnite
Yeah,
of
no.
lore. And I just don't think that like Donald Mustard is very clear that he has a roadmap of like where they want to go with the lore, for
Yeah.
a decade. And so I think paying attention to what's going on with the new comic book will be interesting because we got a Marvel Fortnite comic book about lore, which will be cool. Yeah, so I think we've got more content coming. I do feel though a lot of content creators, a lot of leakers, a lot of people that like this is kind of their thing have been kind of achy about this season of like what's next. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
and I wonder what that does to a player or just a person who plays regularly. And maybe we'll talk about this in our Twitter space on Friday. I'm curious of where players are at with this season. I know no builds has rejuvenated a lot of people, and there's a lot of things you're learning right now because you haven't played for like a year or two, and so I'm sure it could be overwhelming too to just the regular player. But I'm kind of curious of where the regular player fits in this conversation entirely.
Yeah. I mean, I just think we had so much last season with a new map, new guns, new mechanics, new everything. It was like, oh, this is a whole new game that nothing was really going to top it. Like,
Yeah,
whatever happened this season wasn't really going to top the feeling of last season as far as like the whole new map and the all new weapons and all new content you can work with. The only thing they could really do to kind of revive the spirit of this season is drop Creative 2.0. I mean,
sure.
honestly, that's what it's going to be. There isn't going to be a skin that does it. There won't be a weapon that'll do it. There won't be a new mechanic or a new thing on the POI that does it. It'll have to be Creative 2.0, which I don't think they'll do just like in the middle of a season. Like it'll be a bigger spectacle than that. So
I think we have to be very careful of like our Creative 2.0 expectations.
Yeah.
I know those that are listening are probably just like, I think Creative 2.0 has been the savior, kind of been this savior of the future of Fortnite for a while. And when that's coming, we don't know. And so just to be like, have our expectations grounded correctly, I feel like it's just wise to like, when it happens, and hopefully it's great. But we can't just hope that that's going to be the thing that's going to save the game for the future of the game. The game is already thriving really well just by changing up builds, which is crazy. So like, I think we've got I mean, I talk to a lot of friends and family who have no clue what I do. And when I say I play a game called Fortnite, they're like, oh, but they in their head, it's like, when will it die? Eventually you will die if the game dies. And it's like, that's partially true. But like the reality is like this game is doing so many things that make it more than a game. It's way more than a game. It's a game engine. It's a company. It's an e-store. It's so much more than just a game. It's creating collaborations. It's bringing people together. It's pushing the metaverse. There's so much happening with this game that
which is
will keep it here. And I don't see. Maybe this is me being naive, but I don't foresee Fortnite ever dying. I don't see it.
No,
I can't see it. Because it's just they've done so much in such a little amount of time. 4 years they've accomplished all of this. Like that 4 years, bro. Just four. Yeah. That's like going to high school, and they've completed and done so much with this that we're just on the surface. And hopefully the stuff that's going on in Creative 2.0 just kind of shoves everything upward even more.
I mean, you mentioned it. Metaverse. I mean, like we talked about it last episode. I think what they're doing in these 4 years is great, but I think right now a lot of the big heads at Epic are like, hey, we need to think about the next like 15 years, not just like what the next season is, but what's going to happen in 15 years with this game or with this company. And I was actually telling my brother yesterday, who lives in New York, he flew back, and I was like, yeah, I still play Fortnite like every night. He's like, how do you do it? And I'm like, bro, I don't know how to tell you this, but like, it just will never leave. Like, and I keep saying this, but it's basketball to me. Like, I still play basketball all the time, and it's the same game. It's never going to be a new game. I still play it all the time. Yeah. I'm going to keep playing Fortnite as much as I can because I just love the game.
Yep. Whew. It's exciting, man. It's exciting. Well, any final thoughts for the podcast as we wrap up, PM?
No, I mean, I think we've stretched out as much as we can about this boring update.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about outside of just these small updates for sure.
Yeah, and I think if any of the listeners have any things that we haven't talked about, please come by to the Twitter space on Friday.
Yeah,
You know, I think that's
We'd love
your
to
time
hear
for you
what
guys
you would
to
want
say things.
us to talk about. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Pam. I appreciate you being on this, being the voice of reason for the season on Unfaulted Podcast.
The voice of Sweaty.
And of course, a special thank you to all of our listeners that are out there listening to this podcast. Feel free to connect with us on Twitter. We will be doing a space this Friday. Be sure to come by, 4 p.m. Pacific.
Yep.
And yeah, until next time, I'm Squatingdog.
We'll see you later, nerds.
It's PM. We'll see you later, nerds.
There you go.